Just gonna be searching for stuff while we're doing it. Fine. Apparently there. How many was that? Oh, just 1,621. That's fine.
Well. Look what we have here. We are back. Oh, it's about time.
What? Did we just become best friends? Yep.
Oh, here we are. We are back, and Blizzrad just renewed his sub. Thank you so much for subbing, Blizzrad. Really appreciate it. Yeah, we are the Pathfinders, and we are back. Thank you for joining us this evening. And if you're watching this later on YouTube, thanks for watching. We are the Pathfinders, and we are. Oh my gosh, it's been so long. I forgot my shtick.
Charting our way through the nebulous information surrounding
we
Star
are charting
Citizen
our way through all the nebulous information
Squadron.
surrounding Star Citizen Squadron 42.
We'll just have chat with her from now.
Yeah.
Chat, roll the intro.
Yeah. Say it with me now. I am Tree0311 here with my partner in crime.
Hello, everyone. I am Nazeris.
And we're glad to be back. It's been a few months. Things have been hectic. And they're not all the way unhectic, of course, and that probably won't be the case for me for about 18 years or so. But
you think
things are
there?
Yeah, things are. There's a little bit more normalcy, or we're more approaching normalcy. So I reached out to Naz, and I was glad that we could fit this into our schedules to come in and talk and hang out a little bit. But yeah, before we launch into the show, we're doing things a little different this evening. We got a little bit different format, and just because I didn't want to, do a whole episode just on the January monthly report when that was 2 months ago, and so we're catching up on things and talking about some of the more recent developments and bits of information that's been shared that you might have gone underneath the radar for most people. So, but before we get into that, Naz, how you been, buddy?
Always that loaded question. Good, generally. Me trying to remember how I felt or what I've been doing more than a couple days ago is just, for whatever reason, super difficult. I know it's been
current event amnesia.
Yeah, like my long-term memory just doesn't work.
Let's see.
Unless it's Star Citizen information. Because I can remember, all the slides from 2018 CitizenCon perfectly.
Yep, those are the only things that save to long-term memory.
It really is a problem.
Naz's long-term persistence works flawlessly, whereas Star Citizen's... Yeah.
My brain works on server meshing. That server died.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, you aren't. This is why we watch you guys. Yeah. For me, it's the transition to being primarily a full-time dad has been long and filled with challenges, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm glad I get to spend as much time with my kids, but as I do. But being a primarily full-time dad is obviously a very busy job, and when you have a lot of other things going on in life on top of that, it gets real overwhelming real fast. Like when all you have to do is take care of the kids, take care of the household, make sure things are good to go. It's pretty doable. It's difficult, but it's definitely doable. But like I've been battling with homeowners insurance for months. I've been dealing with refinancing our mortgage and figuring out our increasingly more complicated taxes on top of still working a part-time job and being in the Army National Guard, but also being home with the kids 5 days a week, if not more. So it's been if trying to find that balance and still make a little bit of time for myself to do the things that I enjoy like this has been impossible. But I'm getting better at it, so here we are. But yeah, so hoping to be able to continue to do the Pathfinders on a pretty regular basis. Get back to our a sort of cadence that we what was more normal for us going forward, and then also being able to just play Star Citizen more, because I've had like last week was the first time I played Star Citizen in 2 months, since the around Christmas time. And I've had very little time for gaming in general. And so I'm looking forward to being able to play more in the near future to help that experience inform, the podcast and our conversations. So this evening, it's been a long time since we've done what I like to call SITREPs, situation reports, where Naz and I go through the latest information, updates on key features and technologies, just to see where they are in development. And so we've got a couple of those with just some tidbits that came down the pipeline from dev statements in the last month or two. And so I wanted to go over those just because they are very relevant to the state of the game and the way we experience it. But then there's also been some information that's come out that I thought it'd be interesting for Naz and I to cover and talk about our thoughts related to what that information means and why they're putting it out now. And so we're going to talk about the ship owner's guide that was posted a few weeks ago, as well as our first look at item recovery, and just to go over the basics of that, and then what our thoughts are in relation to it. And rather than doing individual full-length episodes on the monthly reports for February and January, we're just going to talk about a few of the highlights from those reports, things that were pretty pertinent to us. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and switch screens. I'm so glad that everything still works to an extent.
Mine didn't. I did a stream 2 days ago, I think. Everything's broken. I'm missing 3 different things, but that I knew of, like 3 different elements. And for whatever
OBS?
reason, yes.
Yeah.
Stay down.
But I don't want to, because it is. Every time you update OBS, 13 things break, and the troubleshooting of figuring out, what broke and how to fix it and make it work how it did before the update is always just...
Okay, that's where it was.
Yeah.
It's the roadmap. I've been trying to find this little bit of information this entire time.
What bit?
That's what it is. No. Somewhere, some point in the not too distant past, somebody said hangar modules.
Hangar modules?
Yep.
Like on modular ships, or like a hangar
No,
module
no.
as in like
expanding your hangar. You know how back in the old hangar we could have multiple rooms of the hangar?
Yeah, based off of how many ships it would just...
Yeah, well, now you can just... It will be just like, hey, you buy more space, more rooms. You also will be able to just decide where you want the elevator and where you want the door.
Oh, yeah. Yep, I remember.
And I don't remember where that was. And I'm like, it's in the monthly report. It's got to be in the monthly... No, it's not in the monthly report.
No, that was a dev
so I'm trying to find
wasn't it?
Was it really? I've been trying to find it.
I think that was maybe a Chad McKinney thing. Rip.
Chad McKinney.
Well, I mean, he's not dead. But,
not Rip,
he's dead to us.
Wish him
obviously.
well. Wow.
Yeah. No,
Well, he's going to Blizzard, so I don't know.
Yeah,
Like who?
yeah.
All I want to know is what the flip Blizzard's doing. Like,
Yeah. Oh, the
I
project that
would,
he's working on for Blizzard.
yeah.
Yeah, because
Like, I was pretty sure they were a dead company for a while now.
Yeah, when in his announcement he said that he was working on an unannounced project and he's very excited about it, or he will be. So who knows what that is? Like, but I don't think he would. And he's in LA, and so this was also part of a didn't want to relocate decision for him, which is totally valid. Totally get it. If you're established and stuff, relocating to the UK or Montreal or something like that just is not in the cards.
Yeah. The fact that Jared did it is bespoke. Like it's what's the word? Outstanding.
Yeah, and but I will, because Chad is brilliant, and I really appreciate he was one of the more prolific and detailed devs when it came to posting on Spectrum, and so he was very good about detailing the work that he was doing and why and how and all that, and so it was always really good to hear from him. I spent 45 minutes talking to him at CitizenCon in 2023.
Oops,
he's just a great dev to talk to, and was always a great source of information. What'd you just send me?
The stuff I've been trying to send you for the past couple of minutes, but I put it into the announcement channel in my Discord. Let's try that again. All right, so it was a roadmap roundup, and it went into the gameplay. I believe it was gameplay. Spaceman. It is a tag tile in hangar upgrades 1.0 in the 1.0 column. So to run down this, because we haven't actually had a show that since the roadmap completely changes paradigm and Jake's now gone and all of that other stuff. Also, hope Jake's doing well as well. How the current roadmap works: one, they deprioritized heavily the progress tracker. It doesn't really do a whole lot currently.
Rip.
They want to bring features back for that in the future, but it's just not a priority because it's a lot of work, and they don't have Jake to maintain it. So what they're doing is basically leading with tiles, or leading with like the little tiles on the release view. So what they have is they have a giant 1.0 wish list of features, and each patch, some 1, 2, whatever amount of them will actually just be pulled into that patches column, instead of we're going to do like updates here in 4.1, 4.2, and then 1.0 is going to be every single feature on that list all at the same time. No. We're going to get some of the features, and then it's going to be spread out over the next year or two. Everything that's in the 1.0 column.
Mm-hmm.
So completely shifting the paradigm of the roadmap. I personally think it's a lot muddier.
In terms of timelines, and it has become dang near impossible to sort of get any idea beyond 3 months. But I do appreciate the 1.0 column and 1.0 presentation, just to give people an idea of what does the released vision of the game look like in terms of what features are there, what content is there, what does that look like for us, both in terms of things that we have that have been demonstrated, but things that have been talked about and shown in various modalities. So I think it serves a purpose. I just, in terms of the granularity we had before is not there, and I will miss that.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So yeah, no, I remember them talking about that in an SCL, like and they were just spitballing ideas of what they wanted to do, like different modules that you could put in there and configure it.
A
but
drone module, a gas module.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You know,
But
maybe a
now
little
it's
med
tile.
bay, you know, storage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now it's its own tile. You know, they
Yep.
consider it a feature, you know,
Yep.
essentially.
And they like specifically they when they were talking about I think it was the hangar elevator SCL questionnaire thing. They were also talking about garages and habs in the hangar.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which I would love an update on what the heck's happening with that, because they floated that last year, but they still said base building interiors. And I'm like, so are we killing player apartment building interiors and we're moving it into the hangar? Like, quality of life wise, that makes sense for a lot of people, but like I still want my apartment in like a new Babbage high rise and a
They
Terra
said
Prime
they were
high
going to
rise.
come back to building interiors after distribution centers, but I feel like they haven't.
I feel like
Uh,
both are dead now.
well, I mean, we have our distribution centers, but in terms of the ongoing development of them, we don't know what that team really is, you know, working on. You know, the you know, we can go to the progress tracker and see a few of the things, but it's the what was it, the landing zone content team or sandbox? I forget. They are working on other locations. They haven't. They got the initial iteration of um, distribution centers in, um, and then they're supposed to. They said they're going to come back to building interiors. They haven't come back to building interiors, but we've gotten more locations and stuff, and so we don't know when they're coming back full circle. And I feel like it's probably tied to dynamic server meshing in that, well, there's no point in doing building interiors until we have dynamic server meshing.
Fair enough. That makes sense. Yeah.
You know, and that's just speculation, of course, but you know,
Yeah.
it makes sense.
But also, like,
But if that's the case, say
they
it.
said we were supposed to get the underground portion and more rooms in distribution centers not long after
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
the distribution centers dropped. And I'm gonna hold this in their face until they finish their job. They specifically said and mentioned in the lead up to building or into distribution centers that the old underground facilities were built for a CitizenCon demo and then never touched again. Guess what they've done with distribution centers? They put the initial version in and they haven't touched them since.
Mm-hmm. And obviously,
So
there's a lot. You know, the only team that is planned far out on the progress tracker is the core gameplay pillar. And so we're due for a progress tracker update for squadron, for character art and tech, vehicle content, EU and NA, and then Squadron 40 or SC locations. So the redacted mission giver, well, we know who that is. It's Wicklow. But that was the only thing, you know, like, so what is this team or teams working on? And we don't know. Because obviously,
it just seems like we're missing so much information from the roadmap that should be there. Like we've had three months now for them to get the roadmap to current.
Wicklow Ultra.
Where is everything?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. And we don't know where fire is right now. We don't know where the updates to the freight elevators are. And
Yep.
and they've also not been doing a great job of explaining what bugs they're going after, which has caused a couple of problems during the PTU. Like, I saw at least twice where update came out, and it was like, nope, this is completely borked. Like, this is going downhill fast. But then they like fixed that and many others in the next update. Like, maybe tell people like, here's our hit list of stuff we're going after.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because otherwise it's just the patch notes.
And even then, like, they don't really tell you a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, fix this, that's great. But like a lot of those, like, they're going after a lot of stuff. Like, I don't want to sell short 4.1 at all. There's a ton of crap in there. Like, way more than any patch notes or patch watches will ever actually get to. Like, there's lots and lots of tiny things. For instance, the doors in the Caterpillar. But they don't have the doors working fully. They just now changed its end state. So they're supposed to have 3 states, closed, half open, which is what we had, and then to the ground. They now only have closed and ground. So we still only have the 2 states, but now it's all the way to ground. So yeah, there's a ton of stuff. Anyway, we should probably get into like what we were actually planned on talking about.
Yeah. So the first SITREP is Vulkan, the Vulkan API. And everybody's wondering, okay, what's going on with Vulkan? It's been long promised that Vulkan would give performance improvements and smooth things out. And it's in a beta state right now. But, there's been lots of crashes associated with it and instability. It hasn't given the performance that was, I hate to use the word promise, but what they intended. But it's because we don't have the multi-threading associated with Vulkan implemented yet. That's not in the game, and so it's not doing anything more efficient. And so everybody's been wondering, they've been talking about it, what's the state of Vulkan? When is it going to be fully implemented? When are we getting the multi-threading?
Ray tracing, freaking ray tracing.
Well, but that's the thing is there's stuff that follows on, the back of Vulkan, like ray tracing, lots of all sorts of visual quality things that are enabled by the overhead that Vulkan gives, and the multi-threading that it enables. But also the like ray tracing, there's stuff for the tech in Star Citizen that is built on Vulkan and isn't going to get implemented. It's not just ray tracing that isn't going to get implemented until Vulkan is in and it's the default. Yeah, ray tracing, global illum, but it's
Global illumination uses ray tracing.
Yeah.
Ray tracing is the base technology. Global illumination is the applied technology.
Mm-hmm. So Ali Brown, another very prolific CIG dev in terms of talking to us.
If we lose him,
yeah, it'll be right after Vulkan comes in, and then somebody else will have to pick up the ray tracing mantle. Responded to this post. So there was a post on January 19th, and Ali replied on February 14th. The post was Vulkan HDR Update 4.0.x, inquiry about Vulkan HDR Update timeline. Dear CIG development team, first I want to thank you for the incredible work you've done on Star Citizen. The release of version 4.0 is a major milestone, and it's exciting to see the game continue to evolve and push boundaries. I wanted to ask about the long-awaited Vulkan HDR implementation. These features have been highly anticipated by the community, and I'm curious if their release is planned now that 4.0 has been launched. Updated Vulkan integration and HDR support would be great, especially for those of us with high-performance setups who are eager to experience Star Citizen in its full visual potential with better 1% lows. That's one thing that I have noticed. Even though my average FPS performance is a lot better without Vulkan, my 1% and my 0.1% lows are much better. I have a more smooth experience with Vulkan. But that means that it will be smoother in landing zones at like 25 to 30 FPS instead of less smooth, but 45 to up to 70 FPS. And so it's a bit of a toss-up. Is there any update on the timeline or the current development status for these features? I would greatly appreciate hearing about them. Thank you for your continued dedication to this ambitious project. I look forward to hearing from you. So Ali had a lot to say. And so I'm going to read the first bit. We'll talk about that, and then we'll get into the second bits after that, and that'll be it for Vulkan. So his first response says, "Hi, the focus for Star Citizen recently on the code side has been on stability, and I thought these posts were pretty important not only for an update on Vulkan, but it also gives you an idea of where they are with the main code branch and what CIG is doing internally at large, not just the graphics
Yes.
team." So
Yeah.
yeah, he's not just speaking to just what they're doing on the graphics side, but this gives you a better idea of where everything's at, especially in terms of feature development. Recently on the code side has been on stability and quality of life improvements to existing features, especially after the rollout of server meshing and the huge impact it's had on the game. As a result, the Star Citizen team haven't been able to make a full new version of the engine in a while because this would bring potentially unstable. That's not right. This would bring potential
No, it's just
instability.
bad words.
Yep.
Potentially
And
instability.
yeah, brain almost exploded.
Oh, I know why. It's just swapped around. This would potentially bring instability and slow.
Yep.
The words are swapped.
Yeah, because this would potentially bring instability and slow down the quality of life improvements for players and also likely prevent regular timely releases, all of which are critical for continued engagement. So, but the Squadron 42 team have been road testing Vulkan, which is enabled by default for them, along with HDR and multi-threaded rendering. So hopefully most of the kinks are ironed out by the time they reach Star Citizen, though I won't be able to predict when exactly that will be. So for context, what he's saying is when he says a new version of the engine, that he's talking about an updated version of the code, the branch of code that everybody in Star Citizen is working on. And so what we have in 4.1 is an outdated version versus what they are working on internally. They haven't started building a new patch with the new code in a while. That's what he's saying. So essentially, even though they are still doing feature development work over here, what they're building patches with is this version over here that we've had since 3.24.2. That when they talked about how 4.0 is on the same code branch as 3.4.2 or 3.24.2, it's because that's the last time that they brought in new code, the most updated version of the engine, and so we're on the same. We're now 3.24.2, 4.0, the 4.0.1 and 0.2 patches, and now 4.1. So 3.24.2 came out was it September or October? Do you remember?
Have to look.
Yeah, but it Q3, Q4, or early Q4 last year. So with 4.1 being live now and will be the main patch for at least a quarter, we will essentially be on the same code branch.
That depends, because they said they had 10 major patches, not necessarily feature patches, but major patches moving story and content forward. So we may get a 4.2 next month.
Yeah. I think they're probably going to do more of the 0.0, 0.1, 4.1.1, 4.1.2 versus major patches. But the naming thing is 6 1/2 dozen. We're gonna be on.
Yeah.
They're not going to change.
All patch numbers are made up, and the points don't matter.
Yeah, they're not going to make. They're not going to change the code branch, in the for a few more months at least.
Yes.
But that means that they'll have been working. Go ahead.
All of the features that they are or stuff that they worked on since 3.2.4.2 has been checked back in to the dev branch. Like, it's not like they've been working on it and there's going to be like a giant, 5-month merger back in to the dev branch. All those checks, all those changes are checked into the dev branch as well as the code branch we're working on. I forget when they talked about that. That's just so like they can not have to do so many steps to back up and pull some more. But yeah, bringing up the dev branch is going to be a amazing thing, and I imagine that's a once a year kind of thing at this point.
I think this year we'll probably have two.
Too?
Yeah, two at most. Two.
Oh yeah.
Where it, I think for the Q2 patch, the what would normally, if we were holding the same cycle would be 4.2. I think that will be the first first pull of the new dev branch, and then I think we might get one more, whether that's at the end of the year or not. But I think that will probably or maybe the beginning of 2026. Who knows? But at that,
it's not coming out soon.
yeah. But at that point, they'll have been
earliest.
Yeah, they'll have been working on that code base for over half a year, if not 9+ months. So these things will have been it will have been in develop not only in development, but it will have been utilized and tested and everything like that for a long period of time, especially for the things that are enabled by default that are part of the version that is being used in Squadron 42. Yes, we're getting older. We're rolling it back. We're rolling back to an older version of the engine.
No.
Get out.
So 1.0, like, I don't. If this year's all content, features be darned, and next year they get to like the really big ticket items, then I wouldn't expect it before 27.
Yeah, that's what I've been.
Like the end of 27.
Yep. I've been on the 3-year plan since December.
However, I have tinfoil hat theories that 26 Invictus is Squadron.
Yeah, that's my guesstimate too.
Like, we know it's somewhere in 26, but like Invictus just feels right.
Mm-hmm.
And I really hope they don't just like whatever the release date. Like, so there is two sides of this coin. You have everyone who's backed Star Citizen and Squadron thus far, and finding a thematically correct time to release the game for them. On the other side, you have the rest of the game industry. And the rest of the game industry loves screwing other devs over, not purposefully, but purposefully, especially publishers, when it comes to release dates. And you gotta hope and pray that no other shooter comes out within, I believe it's 3 weeks after or 2 weeks before. You might have that reversed. So that's like the release date you have to find. A good release date for the people inside to like celebrate it, but also one that makes sense outside so that you're not, Helldivers 3 doesn't come out, or, the next Mass Effect or Halo or Call of Duty, because it is in that niche. And so people are going to buy those games because Star Citizen Squadron 42 is not a proven game yet, and it's doesn't have enough weight behind it as these current established titles.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have a minefield of places to look out for.
Yep. Yeah. So, but these major features, it's not like they are still developing them, still building them. No, they're in Squadron, which is in polishing. And it's just a matter of them. They're polishing it, working out all the kinks, getting everything ironed out before moving it over to the Star Citizen side and implementing it. But but they don't know exactly when that will be. He also goes on to say, we're also considering changes internally that would allow the Star Citizen team to more easily take piecemeal updates to the engine into the live release to reduce the risk of instability for lower risk feature systems, as we're of course eager to get all new shiny things into your hands as soon as possible without compromising the player experience. So they'd like to be able to implement things piecemeal rather than all at once in order to continue to get features in. They're looking into that, but for now it is all hands on deck for quality of life and stability with feature development still going on in the background. And that's the thing is that people need to understand is that feature development's still going on in the background, especially on the engine and stuff, but they're not bringing that to the fore until it's more ready. Hey, Danger Hobo, good to see you. So Naz, if you want to read this next part, and we'll talk about that as we go, because he has a lot more context to what he just said.
How do you always perfectly line it up to where I read the long ones?
I'm
you're
going to
so
read
good at it.
2 of them. This one plus this one.
Oh, okay, so
equal that
you just have more stuff, but you get to break it up and have like breath.
Mm-hmm.
I'll add some more detail / context to my previous reply to help answer some of the questions in this thread. But please let's all place nicely. I only post here with very open answers because I enjoy the interaction with you all.
Some of the questions
SC
were not worded as politely as they should have been, so that's why he said this.
Yeah,
Because I scrolled through this and I was like, "Ooh, people are rude."
I don't read Spectrum anymore unless like a dev responds to something.
Yep, I go
or
straight to the
somebody,
yellow,
like,
and that's all I want to see.
Yep. Ooh, somebody should make a yellow text filter. Just be able to scroll through. That would be great. All right. When I said Star Citizen hasn't taken a full drop of the engine, that means 1, no full drop of the combined main thread, which includes every system, not just graphics. You nincompoops. Individual changes are integrated into SC all the time if they are significantly decoupled and thoroughly tested, which is what we talked about. They're working on the current branch, not the main branch, and then they're checked back into the main branch. Lots of development continues directly within the Star System branch that we're working on, particularly with stability, performance, QOLs, and various new features for upcoming releases. The graphics changes in the main branch include many stability and performance improvements to Vulkan, including multi-threading, HDR, shader optimizations, and more. However, they are also intertwined with many other parts of the codebase, such as wider rendering changes and profiling memory changes that touch every system. So the Vulkan changes can't trivially be integrated into Star Citizen without the rest of the code. It would be possible to manually integrate just the renderer to then undo all of the unrelated changes, but this would probably push back our overall schedule by several weeks and likely miss deadlines for Plantech V5, ray tracing, Squadron 42, etc. So we want to wait for SC to take the full main branch. That last one is important because, hey, what are they working on right now? Plantech V5, ray tracing, Squadron.
Yep. Those are things that they're continuing to develop this year, and they need to be able to work on those. And so they're not taking the extra
Specifically
effort.
the graphics team.
Yeah, they're not taking the extra effort to try and integrate these changes now. They're working on they're continuing to work on them, but the integrating them now rather than continuing to let them cook, it would be a poor use of time and resources that would delay other work. And so it's going to allow those other things to stay on track while we just have to be patient for Vulkan. You know, and not just Vulkan, but that Vulkan is the example related, here. But, it applies to basically everything in the main branch.
Yeah, like one of the another team stuff that's in the main branch is, I think it's crafting. They said is blocked out, not done, not in any way that's going to come forward, but like the tech is now in the game. Now they just need to like rewrite all the menus and write all the little bits like crafting recipes where you put in resources and stuff, but the tech is there. All right, so while a lot of work has gone into making the main branch of Vulkan faster and more stable, the rest of the main branch may not be, such as elevators or ship landing gear, whatever it is, other stuff in the main branch. And the company needs to take careful judgment about when to integrate, how long to test, and how much risk they are prepared to induce to each release, or introduce into each release. Also, it's worth noting that while Vulkan seems faster and more stable for us internally, the true test is always when it goes to a wider public with a much broader mix of hardware, drivers, and software.
So
Some
that
asked
part
about.
I was going to say that part is important because, again, when people keep saying that they do the sky is falling, no new features this year. No, that's not what they've ever said. And it's important to realize, are we going to get the new features that were just starting development last year in this year? Probably not. Those are going to take longer to cook. They're going to get less resources this year than they would have otherwise. The things that have been worked on extensively for several years now, like Vulkan, and gameplay features that are in Squadron, those are going to continue to get developed, and those will most likely still release this year. Just they didn't release with 4.0 and 4.1. They might release 4.2, 4.3, 4.4, what have you. But the like when he talks about it, the true test is when it goes to a wider public with a much broader mix of hardware, drivers, and software. That's not just for Vulkan. That's everything. We have to test they have, and I said this during Captain Sable earlier, but right now, Star Citizen is at 4.1, and essentially the code branch of 4.0. Squadron, in terms of the code branch, and the features in it, is essentially at like 4.5. There's several branches ahead of us because they haven't released those things back to us yet until they're ready. They're continuing to test them. But before Squadron releases, they need to get those things and bring Star Citizen up to the same code branch and feature parity. That way we can test it with the broader mix of hardware, drivers, and software in order to validate it before Squadron releases so it has a smoother release. And we're probably going to be doing that for several months. So when say Squadron releases June, or Invictus next year, May of next year, 2026, that means that we'll be testing the same branch of development, essentially for months, probably 2 quarters prior to that. So all the features that we will have in game 2 quarters prior to that will be the same versions that they have in Squadron. And any issues that we run into, they will backfill into Squadron and fix. Hey, Radder, good to see you, buddy. Hope you're doing well. 07. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because it's not just Vulkan that has to be validated. We have to validate everything to make sure it works before it goes live.
Yeah. And the one of the biggest problems with them finding a good time for that is there is not a single month, except for like the last couple of the year, where there's not some major thing going on. And now with what they've been doing this year, they're even filling in gaps with now story events. So we really don't have the time to screw up the servers, screw up the game. And the problem is I don't see them having enough manpower, even in PTU, for working out these bugs. Like, the amount of stuff, the amount of time that the dev branch has sat, and the amount of changes that's in it, it's going to be a massive multi-month undertaking. And like, I hope that the devs like have some way to pull people into the PTU because there's so much work to be done. I would not be shocked if they say, "Hey, this is our new dev branch. This is going to be 3 to 4 months of work."
Yeah, that's why I don't think the main branch between the two games will change for 6 months at least prior to Squadron releases. That way, we can be playing on it because in a lot, and that will be like the final version before Squadron releases, but they'll be adding things into it to build up to that point prior to that. So it isn't going to be all at once, but we have to get the new radar and scanning in. That's part of Squadron. And we need to test that and validate it. The new quantum travel and the aspects of the flight model, guess what? We're going to be testing that. That needs to go into Star Citizen before Squadron releases, well before Squadron releases, in order for us to test it, and provide feedback, but also, bug test.
Master modes is basically dead at this point.
That
Like it's now mode suggestions instead.
Yeah,
because the master mode title was given to the system when you had to switch mode into that system. Now it's dynamic and it's based on what systems you have on or off. If you step into your ship and turn everything on and then shut off your engines, turn on your comm drive, it puts you into quantum travel mode. It's so nice. Like I cannot wait to see that system expounded on.
Yeah, the intent is still there. It's just not hard limited between a button press.
Yep. Apprentice mode. There we go.
Yeah. Nas, please continue.
All right. So a lot of work has gone into making the main branch Vulkan. Did I read that one already? Yes, I did read that. Someone asked about the possibility of a Vulkan preview tech preview. And this is something we're actively considering, but again, the cost, time, and effort which pushes back our overall schedule progress, because we have to either integrate or decouple just the renderer, or need to take the whole main branch and then end up with problems in unrelated systems that we, graphics team, cannot fix without pulling people off other potentially higher priority work, e.g. server stability, QoL improvements. So a preview channel only becomes worthwhile if we suspect there would be a prolonged delay to getting graphics/tech updates to the players. You want to just finish the other two?
Yeah, they don't expect a long delay for this. It's going to come,
and this was back in February.
Yep. Oh.
All right. But as mentioned previously, we are also exploring ways we can try to keep features/systems improvements more isolated to give management more options as to when to integrate each feature/system into Star Citizen, such as feature A.
Control the truck.
Yeah.
You control the truck under computer. Control the truck.
Yeah, with the joysticks. All right, buddy. It's time to go night-night. I'll see you tomorrow morning. We'll have yummy breakfast. Good night, buddy. See you tomorrow. I love you.
Eventually, we'll get him on to read the long ones.
Yes. Well, here's this funny thing where it's from one of his shows, and I don't know which one it is, but like if I'm talking about something or like he hears something in a song or on TV and he doesn't know what it is, he goes, "What's that even mean?" It's just he's so
Nice.
animated about it. And I'm like, man, I say that all the time when I'm reading about Star Citizen stuff.
That's just going to kill the next 3 hours of searching. Great, thanks. Actually, that last paragraph, that little couple sentences there, is actually really important. They are, as of February 20th, trying to find a way to develop features in a way that doesn't tie them to the code base, so that management, aka team leads and Chris and the executive team, are able to say, okay, that feature goes, that one stays, that one stays, that one goes, and we can pull features out of the dev branch instead of having to check the entire dev branch in. I don't think we have an update on this. That's just something they'd like to do, but we haven't heard anything. So it's kind of like a weird, like, pie in the sky kind of hope. Last one is, I appreciate that some of this can be frustrating to hear for people who are looking for improvements to Vulkan in the short term. But trust me, it's equally frustrating for us developers. It's far easier to take to a gun-ho approach, but that has been proven in several past releases to lead to not lead to a good player experience, which ultimately hurts the game and the company. Which I don't know. It's been buggy for like 12 years now. I don't think like that's like community's fine. Though, in their defense, they are crushing their funding goals this year.
Yeah, I think that this is the changes, starting in December, and obviously it started before that, but that's when we really heard about it from Chris, is in relation to engagement over the last year. And not, it doesn't necessarily mean funding, but in terms of engagement, because CIG does need engagement in order for us to test the product. We are QA. And if people aren't playing and aren't testing things and providing the feedback, they're not getting the information they need to improve the product and further develop things. So, it does hurt them, and eventually it will could probably hurt their wallet. Suddenly came through. Why am I hearing myself?
I don't know.
Hello?
Hi?
What did you do?
I didn't do it. I didn't touch anything.
Is it your headphones? Something's picking up my voice.
Possibly.
Mic check. Yep. I can hear an echo.
Okay, what? Okay, talk again.
Hello? It's not coming
Nothing
through
here's
on this
playing
end.
audio out loud.
How can I hear myself all?
Did you turn on the monitoring on your mic itself? Maybe somehow.
There's nothing on my mic.
Okay.
My hands are sitting in my lap. You guys don't hear it? I'm the only one who can hear this? What the fuck? Oh. Well, that's really weird.
What?
Huh. So on my Stream Deck, I could just tap the mic input,
button.
the monitoring, and it mutes the monitoring, but then I can click the button to be able to see it, so that way I can and turn it back on and adjust the volume for what I hear and what you guys hear and such. And somehow it magically, my hands have been sitting in my lap, but somehow it unmuted myself in the monitoring for me. That's weird. Yeah, blame Windows. First sign of insanity. Cool. So we'll read through this last bit, and this is just an update on what they're working on currently by the graphics team. So ray tracing BVH. This is required for ray tracing and is usually complex and expensive in most games, but even more so with our scale and moving zones. Ray trace global illumination. This is making good progress and has started to be actively used on Squadron 42. However, there are still improvements required to several areas before it's ready for prime time. Ray traced reflections. For the first version, these will use screen space colors for objects on screen and simplified material representations for objects off screen. Currently, there are still some issues with noise blobbiness to resolve. Screen space probes. This system that triggers and combines the results from global illumination, both ray traced and probe based reflections, and both ray traced and screen space and occlusion. That's worded wrong, but okay. Screen
Global
space
illumination,
probes.
both ray traced and probe based. Reflections, both ray traced and probe based, and occlusion.
Mm-hmm. And reflections. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. It's
Character
just
decals.
global illumination, that and that. Reflections, that and that, and occlusion. The whole this. It's he did it again.
Oh.
This is that. Or this,
yeah, it should read. This is the system that triggers and combines the results from.
Yeah.
Character decals. This tech will be used to place things such as scars, wounds, and potentially tattoos. The intention is for it to be used by Cinematics, Squadron 42, Character Customizer, Scars and Tattoos, and Dynamic Damage, Weapon Impacts. Okay. So weapon impacts on characters. Oh, that would look cool.
Mhm.
Vulkan, there are constant improvements required for performance and stability for Vulkan, and we're frequently adding new extensions to enable new technology or optimizations. Planet Tech V5 and Genesis. This is a huge change to how we distribute all content on planets, with the goal of much better visuals, performance, and provide more power to gameplay systems for things like harvestables, mining creatures, etc. Video memory. We're overhauling how video memory is budgeted to force developers to remain in budget, while giving players explicit control of how they allocate their video memory to each graphical effect. The end result should be
That's
better
cool.
performance for everyone. Yeah, as low video memory looks to be our number one GPU performance issue. Damage map compression. Damage maps allow for accurate damage and salvage across our ships, but the networking of this data has a significant cost, and so we're compressing these maps down to a fraction of their raw size, such that each packet of data is a maximum of 32 kilobytes. So
Also
that
very
way,
cool.
yeah, this will really help the when damage is done to your ship or when you're salvaging. So that way, what you see and what's being communicated across the network for other people to see, based off what you're doing or what's happening, it will be far more performant, and to not have as much of a impact on the network or on network performance. There are many smaller features and bug fixes that I can't hope to list here, but hopefully that gives you an idea of how busy we are getting new features ready for you. And he added a couple more things. Dynamic damage, weapon impacts. Is that if that is coming to humans, so we actually get visible wounds, that would be fantastic. I think this is meant to be a mature game, but without gun, blah, blah, blah. He said, yes, that's the intention, but this is still work in progress on the graphic side with the game code and art yet to be started, so this won't be for a while. It'll also likely involve the game team. We'll add a gore setting for users to opt out of realistic wounds. I want this for medical gameplay.
Yeah. Who was it that actually said it? Danger Hobo said, Naz, why not work at CIG? Because I have no applicable skills they want. I dabble in every single thing that they do. I have no paper that says I can do anything, and I can't do anything that they do at the quality they do it. And that is the entire stack of things. Like, I've done sound design, not anything that would be notable, just like Little Big Planet levels. I've done, obviously I run a YouTube channel, but not at like the scale nor the complexity that I'd be able to do community management. I've done video editing, I've done 3D modeling, I've done CAD programs, I've done texture work, but nothing to the point that would be applicable or at the quality they need. It's a terrible, terrible place to exist.
Yeah, some of these other replies. This is a really good thread, and it sucks that some people were pretty rude. And he summarized a bunch of his replies into these big ones at the top, but there's a lot more down here that we won't get into. But if you're looking for more stuff related to graphics and everything like that, and Vulkan and other tech that the graphics team is working on, I highly suggest checking out this thread. It's like 5 weeks old, and there's a bunch of good information. So, and of course, the link will be in the show notes when this posts up to YouTube. So go ahead and check it out. But that's the SITREP on Vulkan. Now we're going to take a look at a SITREP on this is not just the atmospheric flight model, but it's a reply to the atmospheric flight model, or a question about it. So what was asked, what happened to the and this was asked on February 16th, what happened to the atmospheric flight shown at CitizenCon 2953? And so there's a series of replies. And during the Taking Flight panel at CitizenCon 2953, the team showed off a genuinely cool atmospheric flight model with stalling and AFCS Sadly, none of that work has made it into the game so far, which leads me to wonder, is this something that is still being planned, or is this something that has been scrapped? If it is still being planned, can we get an update on its status? So someone asked, I don't need an ATA, but I do need to know one thing. Does this enable controlled descent while in Atmo if you get disabled, provided enough control surfaces survive the beating? Uncontrolled dives have been a curse for a long time now, since we don't have parachutes or jetpacks. Very low survivability. Yeah. Yogi says, if it's just the thrusters that are failing, you can still glide. So this is within the atmospheric flight, assuming the ship currently generates enough lift. The question is more...
Part of the crew.
Hey, Joy Pop, thanks for the follow.
Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship.
The question is more if the flight computer, IFCS core, is online or not. So, your inputs that you put into the game actually go through a flight computer in your ship to do what you want it to do. And that can be knocked out in this system. If offline, no commands would be moved to the control surfaces. So you would still glide because the aerodynamics are still calculated, but you couldn't affect the path. If the flight computer is online, you can control your ship even without thrusters being online. Landing will be pretty hard though, but probably not impossible. I'll make a note to discuss that specific use case internally. I find it quite interesting to be able to move the control surfaces without power, but it might not fit the lore as those fins are really large and potentially too heavy to move them with backup cables. So he's talking about a fly-by-wire system, essentially like what would happen if you lost hydraulics. And the computer systems that control them, within an aircraft. Would you still be able to pull up on your stick and it would pull wires that would move, different control surfaces and be able to fly your ship, like you can an aircraft, which if that happens to your plane or your helicopter, it is very difficult to control. And that's where you see people pulling really hard in movies and all that. And, and you're like, why are they pulling so hard? And it's because they probably lost hydraulic power or something sort of augmentation to your inputs. And so they want it so that way you could potentially just have your flight computer be knocked out and your inputs don't even work. Your computer, because we have computers on our ships, that's a component. If your computer gets knocked out, then your ship will not fly. And so that's something to think about. Something that they're looking at. And then this next reply, it is really important. And Naz, if you want to read this one, the question and the answer. Oh,
question by Rubcarbib.
Yep.
Are we back from ads?
It says 1 minute 30. Well, let's see. What did it say on
Your dashboards to say.
I don't have that set up.
Oh.
Sorry, I don't like talking to the ads. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
people don't miss out on
know
stuff.
Parrot Software has a thing that shows up, so it's got to be possible. I don't know how, but there's a way to change your entire screen when ads show up. Back. Oh no, that's do.
Okay,
all right. When it is ready, would it likely be bundled with Quantum Boost and the improvements to the Quantum Experience? Question mark. Yogi, the current plan is yes. Without the new Quantum Experience, the flight model changes would actually wouldn't go down well outside AC. Interesting. So they tie much harder into it. So that actually makes me very happy because I thought they were focusing way too hard on the flight model, not enough on getting us the quantum stuff, and that was just like backburnered. Same thing, same update. good.
when they talked and the flight model is not only the IFCS system and control surfaces, but it's also the changes to master modes and all that.
Yeah. So I think it'd be a much better name if they call it the new, not the flight model changes, but the flight experience changes, because that's
it's a
both
holistic
quantum
system
and flight. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
quantum,
entire
it's flight
gameplay.
Yeah, it's if they have the new flight model changes, without the quantum experience, it wouldn't jive as well. But I think it's really pointed to hear that, because all of these things are, again, part of Squadron 42, and they're all in Squadron 42 and have been in Squadron 42 for quite some time and in testing. And so they have to get these things out to us to play with and to test before Squadron launches, and well before, so that way we can provide feedback. But it's a big deal, because they're not going. All these things are going to be coming in at once. We're not going to get control surfaces and new IFCS, in one patch, and then the next patch, the new quantum experience, and so on. And so this was the response to the original question that I already read. So he says, Lady Anna, what was shown at CitizenCon 2953 2023 was the so-called control surface model. This is not an isolated feature, but part of a much larger update to the flight model, which is currently ongoing. 2024 wasn't really a focus year for the flight model, but we started getting back to it directly after a Christmas break. Progress on the flight model in the last 2 months has been really good. I'm really excited about it, but it's just not ready for the public or even public testing. We'll announce things for this when we're ready. So yes, that stuff is still coming. Still coming. When? We don't know. Soon? We don't know.
This was, again, February 23rd.
Yeah, this is February 23rd. But at the same time, these are things that they're going to need to implement into Star Citizen for us to provide feedback on, and also to test for stability and function before Squadron releases, well in advance. So,
Yep.
But it's interesting. Yeah,
I
imagine it's one of those
imagine-
things where, as we follow the development, with the monthly reports and stuff, to see where they are with the work on these things, it'll give us a better idea of where they are leading up to their getting, because this is a feature, and this will get dropped into the EPTU, before going to live. So we'll probably have a good idea of when it's going to be going to EPTU, and then subsequently live after that. Did you have something you were going to say?
Yep. Give me 2 seconds.
Oh, shoot red targets. Got it.
What? So like you were saying earlier, with them pulling a full code branch, and then that be the one that stays around for a while, is the one that Squadron 42 releases on. So whatever that gold, when Squadron goes gold, that's the version that's gonna harden and be pulled into Star Citizen, so that as Squadron's going through its marketing and stuff to get the discs in the stores and doing all the lead up, we have the version and all the features tested.
Yep. And
I also believe there's going to be a version that is worked on under that. That will be the day one patch version. That will be all of the changes that the lower end devs that are working on more R&D and stuff, the ones that work on the base stuff, feature R&D.
Yeah, they won't stop working. They just they'll continue to incorporate fixes and optimizations as they get it ready for release. But they just, at that point, they won't be adding new features to that branch. We'll both be on that branch for a while. Star Citizen can add more content and everything like that, but it'll be kind of like this year, the first part of this year, or something where they're adding content, they're not adding features because they don't want to introduce code instability as they're getting that code ready for Squadron's release, because they'll be informing each other, one for one essentially at that point. But yeah, and that's part of the unsaid portion of this whole quality of life stability push, is because they're at a point with Squadron where they need to get these features in for Squadron, but they also need to make sure that Star Citizen is in a good state when Squadron releases, that people don't go and buy Squadron and play Squadron and be like, this is awesome, I'm gonna go play the MMO and play it and be like, this is fucking garbage, and get super pissed. And so Star Citizen cannot be in the state that it's currently in, both in terms of instability, but also lacking these quality of life features that we need to make the game experience better, but also the gameplay features that are that we need to have to make the experience better, because that's what the release version of Squadron will feel like. They don't want to release it and have us be flying around in our ships in Squadron and then go play Star Citizen and be like, wait a minute, this isn't how it works in Squadron. Why is this different? Oh, well, we didn't have a chance to get it into Star Citizen and test it, blah, blah, blah. Same with EVA. EVA push pull, radar and scanning. Oh, wait a minute, how come I can't do a radar ping or scan or anything like that? Or why is why is the quantum travel not doing what it's supposed to? Oh, well, that's not in Star Citizen yet. That would be a horrible look. Horrible. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's it for the SITREP on the sort of the holistic flight experience, as Naz is coining it, and we're gonna stick with that. We're gonna call it the flight experience because it's quantum travel, it's IFCS, it's not master modes, it's control surfaces. Yeah.
In a slightly unrelated thing that just popped into my head, I keep saying 3. We've been in patch 3 for so long. In 4.1, the map routing now uses transit.
Oh, really? I hadn't seen that.
Yep. So it's a hidden not keybind. It's a hidden hotkey. If you open up your map and hover over a spot on the map and hit R for routing, it will give you the line. It won't give you a HUD thing, but it will be in your mini map.
Yep.
And before 4.1, I didn't notice it doing that, and I think I tried it in 4.0. I may not have, but I definitely tried it before 4.0. Anyway, it wouldn't take elevators and it wouldn't take the train. So if you were, let's say, in Aspire Grand and you wanted to get to the spaceport, it would just nope. Now it routes you down to the subway and routes you into the space station.
Interesting. I wonder if that was an improvement to transit, or it fixed for transit, or if that was an issue on the routing system not recognizing it.
I would imagine the transit side, because they were kind of like, hey, transit's going to get reworked. So
yeah, heavily mentioned
and now we
in the
have
last 2
that
month reports.
stopgap.
Yeah. Yep.
So
the next thing that we're going to cover was this ship owner guide, components, power, and signatures. And we're not going to read through everything, but we're just going to take a look at it and the information. And I just wanted to hear Nazareth's thoughts, because when we were getting ready for this episode, one thing that Naz said, he was like, yeah, where's resource network and engineering? And I'm like, and at that, like, within minutes, I was looking at this because I had, I knew it came out and I didn't read through it because I was like, I didn't have time. But I was like, you know what? This just came out. And all of this is related to the resource network. It's all talking about things that aren't in yet. But, like, the components are there, but they don't all do the things yet. And some of them don't have, but this is a primer for how these systems will work when engineering and resource network come in. Well, why would they release it right now? to get us ready for when those things come out. Is it soon? I don't know, but I wanted to take a look at this briefly and hear Nazeris' thoughts about the information that they put out. Yeah, see what he thinks about what this might be signaling and everything. Naz, if
So
you
it
want
definitely
to,
is a living document.
yep, yeah, for sure.
There's several components in here. Batteries being my most notable one. All it says for text is "plan for a future release." So this is a living knowledge base for new players.
It is up to date based off how the game functions right now, with information that alludes to what it will be in the future. And so it kind of like, remember our shipyard articles from way back when, that never got updated and stuff. But we always went back to them. This is designed to, like you said, be a living document. Tell you what, if you want to read through the component properties stuff and go through that briefly, I'm going to go grab a drink because I am thirsty, getting a little parched.
You want me to read down which spot?
Through the component
Nope, he's
properties and the types.
Component properties. All right, cool, got that. All right, component properties. Component properties are determined by a variety of ratings tied to key parameters: type, class, grade, and size. These parameters not only define a component's role within a vehicle, but also influence critical factors such as health, durability, weight, and power consumption. The manufacturer also has a small influence on the performance of a component through its unique style. The subtly affect final properties of the component, making your choice of manufacturer relevant not only to the cosmetic or lore reasons, but also their stats. Each parameter plays a vital role in shaping the performance and effectiveness of your ship. Let's break down in detail to better understand their impact on your gameplay. Starting with the type. The type of a component defines its primary function by describing its actions and resources it consumes, produces, or stores. This is the foundation of the component's role within your ship's systems. Most components are further categorized by their class, manufacturer, grade, and size, with exceptions as fuel tanks and quantum fuel, and thrusters and engines, which may not always include these attributes. To help you visualize this, think of a type as a high-level category of an FPS gear weapon, or FPS gear item. It determines whether something functions as a piece of armor, a weapon, or a backpack. In the same way, type establishes a component's overall purpose in a ship. That's great. Batteries, we all know what batteries do, but it says, plan for future releases. Coolers. A cooler is a critical ship component that manages heat generated by other systems. It produces coolant, which is distributed to powered components to prevent overheating and ensure smooth operation. Each unit of power assigned to a component directly translates to a unit of coolant requiring to cool it down. Each cooler has a specific maximum coolant output, determined its ability to support different loadouts. Proper cooler's selection ensures efficient heat management based on your ship's power consumption, which comes into effect, especially if you want your ship to do something other than just cooling stuff, like stealth reasons. Hydrogen fuel tanks. A hydrogen fuel tank holds your ship's hydrogen fuel, which is the default fuel type for most spacecraft, as long as you're not quantum traveling. But if you're using your thrusters maneuvering, it's hydrogen fuel. Hydrogen fuel is a colorless and odorless substance.
Spacecraft, as in other ships will not use hydrogen fuel by default.
Well, they're leaving it open. They're being vague enough to leave cutouts.
Yep.
Potential conventional engines during non-quantum flight. It is essential for standard propulsion and maneuvering, making the fuel tank a fundamental component of any spacecraft's operation. Proper fuel management ensures your ship remains operational during emissary flights or non-quantum travel, emphasizing its critical role in both short and long-distance missions. These are like well worded, but these are very much like it does the thing that it says on the tin.
Yeah.
And this, like, for somebody coming into spaceships as a thing, this might be news. I'm pretty sure most of us here, not a lot of this is going to be news.
Yeah. And really we don't need to look at all the component types because we should be pretty familiar with these. But like I said, it's a living document, and I like that they put in things that aren't even in yet and said for future release, rather than not putting them in when they already know about them, and not mentioning it. But they didn't provide details that they didn't have yet. They weren't,
Yeah. Now the only question is, when batteries get use in the game, are they going to update this? That's my only question. Are they going to not kill it once it's? Also, I really need to get me the new F8. Not F8. The new Hornet. I need a new Hornet. So if you go down to radar, there's a picture of a Hornet. Components
radar.
at the top. Yep. That just looks
yeah.
so nice. That
It
looks
is
so
pretty cool.
sleek.
It's the
like-
tracker, right? The Hornet tracker.
Yeah, that should be, yeah. I don't care about the meta. I want a pretty looking boat. I don't care. Like, the Hornet for me is going to have like no use. I don't like ships without an interior, which is why I like the Mantis so much, because it's a really small ship with an interior. That's why I like the Cutter as well. I love the Cutter because it also has a ramp. So interior and ramp, oof, perfect combo. It's also why eventually the Ironclad's going to probably be my main ship, because it's low, ramp, cargo bay. It's got all the bits. And then you can also fly the command module off.
I do think that this bit was pretty important. The size of a component determines its input and output capacity. So this is the resource network bit. Like, how much input does it require to do the thing, and how much does it put out? How much fuel does it needed to run the power plant, and how much power does it generate per cycle? Defining its role within a ship or vehicle. Item port and defining the role. So the size of an item might determine whether it's, you might have a smaller power plant in a certain part of a ship that's just meant for powering weapons or specific items. Item port sizes range from size 0 to size 4, with additional steps for larger capital ships to maintain balance. For example, while both a reclaimer and a Bengal use size 4 components, their unique requirements call for further distinctions. So we don't know what those are. We don't know how that works for the size 4 components between, the differences between those two. As far as I'm aware, that's new information. Still vague, but it's something to consider. But it also, it's good that goes over other aspects of how the properties scale with the size. It says most properties, such as health, signatures, and output. So, like, obviously, a larger power plant, will have a larger signature. It'll generate more power, but it'll also be more resilient. So, it's going to take a lot more damage to take out a larger power plant than a smaller one. And that's directly impacting that component through all the other damage mitigation efforts that larger ship has. The class, so I'll read the class one, and then we can finish up with power, heat, and signature. or I'll read class and grade. Sorry. The class of a component defines its specialization and the type of gameplay it's best suited to. Classes help differentiate components based on their intended roles, offering a variety of options for different strategies and playstyles. You can equip your vehicle with components from any class, allowing you to experiment and find the configurations that best suit your needs and objectives. So it's essentially saying like what the base stats are, and the base stats will differ based off of the class. The function is the same, but the base stats will be different. And this is what will, I think, will more than anything play into crafting, because you will specialize based off of the class and then further enhance that class based off those base characteristics. So each class comes with its own strengths, making it particularly suited to specific situations or playstyles. At the same time, every has balanced weaknesses that offset these advantages. The strengths and weaknesses are carefully distributed across all classes, ensuring that no class is overall better or worse than another. And we won't read in the descriptions. I encourage everybody to... I wanted to highlight this because when this came out, I didn't see anyone talking about it.
And we talked about this before the show. We both saw this and like, yeah, we know this, and tossed it like we opened it like, yeah, we saw the shipyard post. We know what this means. No. I will be reading this, if not later on tonight, then tomorrow. Like,
yeah, I've already read through it once. I'm going to read it again and reread it again because it is not the same as what we thought before. There is new information. There are subtle changes, and they are telegraphing things for resource network and engineering that is on the horizon that we may not have considered before, or we were only speculating about before. That's why I wanted to highlight that this is here, because it just in my anecdotal experience, this got posted and there was a comm link for it, and everybody skipped on over it because they're like, well, engineering isn't in, I don't care.
Yep.
And so yeah, we knew about these classes. Those are already in there. But in terms of the descriptions and what that means, these things might not conform to what you thought they were. Because this is a living document, yes, this stuff could change. But I think that the things that are in here right now are probably a very good general guideline, and I would bet the changes are more going to be additions to things that, like the batteries and stuff, versus massive changes that would make this confusing. The resource network and engineering is almost in. We're past the point of the design guide. So grade. The final modifier is the grade, DCBA, which acts as an item's quality indicator. Depending on the grade, it may enhance, maintain, or reduce a component's default values. So this is just like the quality of the manufacturing. So what this will mean in terms of stats, I don't know. But it's one of those. This is going to be, if you think of it from an RPG standpoint, it isn't just your rares, commons, and uniques and stuff. There's multiple modifiers that go into. You might have that's not the best way to explain it, but it's. I guess you could say the grade is like the rarity, because it's a quality thing, but you can still have a grade C military size 4, and we don't know how it's going to affect those default values, but we also don't know where that will impact crafting in the future. Like, can you take it from a grade C to a grade A, and then enhance it from a from, what was it, 1 to 5, right? the crafting levels, or that was for ships. Or...
I think ships are the only thing that go up to 5. Everything else goes up to 3.
Yeah. Yep. I think that's right.
And just as a note, it says grade A, ultra rare, the highest possible performance, not expected to be obtained through regular means. So this is the like reputation gated stuff. This is the quest line benefits and crafting only.
Yeah. Well, and even like in order, you're when they say regular means, not bought in stores, or at least not without the appropriate reputation. And that means if you want the blueprint to make this grade A thing, you have to get all the reputation to not only be able to buy it, but the reputation to be able to get the blueprint to make it, or do whatever quest line it is to make it. And then from there, you have to make it enough times and do the experimentation in order to upgrade it beyond that. So there's a lot of work that goes into. I think people are underestimating the amount of work that will go into getting the highest tier of something, because not only do you have to do everything to get a grade A something, but then you have to do all the research in order to get grade A class 5, 4, 3, whatever. Naz, if you want to read power, heat, and signature. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yep. And with crafting, like once you get the base crafting thing, you still have to upgrade that blueprint. So that's why they said at CitizenCon, like, crafting is going to be a full-time job in this game. Mm-hmm. We will have plenty of people and sections of large orgs dedicated to owning, maintaining, and upgrading blueprints.
We're literally going to have people who are going to be sitting in their basement at their desk doing 3D printing in-game while their 3D printer is over there on another table 3D printing. It's going to be those people. But yeah, it's going to be a very involved process, and doing it alone is going to be very difficult, because if you're so specialized in crafting that you can do that high tier crafting, are you going to have the time and experience to go do the other aspects of the game that get you those high tier blueprints and high tier materials? So power, heat, and signature.
Component consumption and emissions. There we go. Choosing the right component is one thing, but an experienced ship owner also knows how to get the most out of their vessel and what dangers to watch out for. Understanding the intricate systems of your ship is what separates a good pilot from a great one. Let's take a closer look at the power, heat, and signature, three key factors that not only define your ship's performance, but also determines your ability to adapt and thrive in the vast and unpredictable expanse of the verse.
So this is pretty in-depth. And I don't want to go over this in detail because I want everybody to read it for themselves.
Yeah, especially heat and cooling. Oh boy, that's a big one.
Yeah. There's a lot here. And I don't think that the ISCs and the SCLs that they've done on this really accurately or completely convey. Yep. Hey, Joy Pop, thank you so much for the Prime sub. Really appreciate your support. With the follow and the sub this evening. But I really don't think that they really conveyed in its entirety or as completely as they could have how in-depth these systems are and how much goes into them and how much freedom you have as a master of your ship. Because of how these things are all intertwined. And it gives you basic information, what are the main systems and subsystems, and essentially, this is telling you if I need to save power or something like that, what things will get me the most bang for my buck in terms of, shutting them off or reducing their output to therefore reduce their consumption. Weapons and shield generators versus radars and life support and gravity. It's really important information. I don't think we can really. That's why I was like, oh man, we need to show this off so that way people will go and read it, and really take this information to heart. So that way, when the system does come in, because it is coming and it's coming soon, we're all a little bit better prepared, because I think it's going to surprise a lot of people. But yeah, so obviously, there's a whole bunch of these drop-down things with a lot of information in each one of them, and this whole page is this long. There's a ton of information, which is why I didn't want to cover the whole thing in nitty-gritty detail, because it would take forever. This is a whole episode on its own. But because this came out a couple weeks ago, and I didn't see anyone talking about it, I wanted to be like, hey, Naz, let's show this off, because people need to recognize that this is new, this is updated, this is taking the information that we've been getting in bits and pieces and collating it and putting it out here in a living document, and people need to be aware of it. So yeah, that's
And
the.
go
ahead.
To your point, like, why is this showing up now? And we talked about it a little bit, like there seems to be this rattling that we're going to get more features pretty soon here, or at least update on the features we've waiting on. And so it would make sense that we get this big document of all the engineering stuff before we start getting the release lead up of engineering itself, somewhere year half about. So I hope indeed.
Me too. Sorry, my sister sent me a message. So the next thing we want to take a look at was item recovery. So
now I apparently missed, like as I normally do, the problem with this. I don't know how it happens, but every time there's like, oh my god, the community's on fire. Like, no, this makes sense. I don't know what you guys are freaking out about. And like, Shimpasta, I did I forget when I did a stream and we talked about this, and I was doing Space Ninjas at the time. And after I read through it and like said what it meant, like Shimpasta was like, oh yeah, actually that makes sense. Fine, moving on. Off master. Yeah. I also like master modes. I like the stupid hover mode. Like, I'm just apparently way too easy to please with game mechanics. It's fine. All right. Item recovery and the end of looting as we know it. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah. I only have one problem so far with this, and that was my thing, is like people were just losing it, and I'm like, hey, hold on, like they're just now introducing this, let them iterate on it a little bit, and because otherwise, like the amount of hyperbole was just insane. When this first came out, so
people were being my new favorite word for some reason recently, hyperbolic, super hyperbolic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like,
so this is,
oh boy.
This is posted on March 4th. This was posted by Xylo. Alpha 4.1, first look at item recovery. And so we talked about this a little bit on Captain's Table today, because it is one of the one bit of a multi-system approach to reducing friction in Star Citizen, so that way you can play the game. So as we prepare for the Evocati test phase of our upcoming Alpha 4.1 patch, we'd like to introduce the iterative release plan for item recovery, a long-awaited system that gives players more control over reclaiming their valuable gear after death. At CitizenCon 2954, we shared our long-term design for crafting, insurance, and item ship recovery. If you need a refresher, both presentations are available, blah, blah, blah. Today, we want to provide a more detailed breakdown of some of the iterative releases that will start to bring these plans to life. The initial Tier 0 rollout will be fairly basic compared to the full system, but it marks a crucial first step. As we shared at CitizenCon, the complete item recovery system will be far more robust and nuanced, making gear management a core gameplay element. You'll be able to secure the items that matter most while still allowing room for piracy and emergent gameplay. First step, Tier 0 implementation. And I'll read down
This
through
is the
Tier
one
0.
everyone's freaking out about.
That was a little bit down to the end, and that's where my concern, because I feel like the Tier 0 is more good than bad. I think it's okay for now.
Yeah, same. Like very much same. But like that's like where I've heard the most complaints is Tier 0. The end of loot. I don't know how many people in chat. How many people? There are currently 17 people. I don't know because I don't very often loot players.
Yeah.
I honestly I don't PvP that much. Fair enough, but even when I'm like coming across like formerly alive players, I don't loot a whole bunch of stuff from them. Like even if they had something, like I get way more percentage of my items from shops and NPCs.
Yeah.
Like
NPC
looting from
loot.
NPCs.
100%.
Or even like boxes. Like mostly boxes. Most of my stuff that I get when playing the game is from boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's like, the end of loot. I don't like what player gets most or not even a majority,
A significant
a third
percentage
of their own, a significant percentage owned items from players. I don't even think PvP people get most of their items from players.
Mm-hmm.
This is not the end of loot. This is the end of looting players' bought items. And only temporarily, because we'll get to it later. Like there's unlocks for it later. Because this is like the point of like buying cosmetic crap. And also, like they go even a step farther with like the last tier, restoring brick crap. Like tier 2 goes the way farther than most MMOs go, and they said, "Hey, we're gonna let you steal it, and then we're gonna let you fix it so you can use that thing that they bought." So like this is an insane system that not only lets people loot, but eventually lets people grab items that somebody bought, lets them still have them, but lets the pirate use them as well. And I think that's awesome. And I cannot wait to see the black market in the game.
Yep. With the initial
Why
rollout
the Pirate King
of item recovery in Alpha 4.1, initially referred to as Tier 0, you will respawn with the exact gear you had equipped at the time of death, when it works. Emphasis on the... I've had issues. Emphasis on the term equipped, as this is different than what you may have had in your inventory. This includes equipped weapons, armor, magazines, and med pens, ensuring that your core loadout is retained. However, items stored in your inventory, such as your backpack or other containers, will remain on your corpse, making them available for looting or retrieval.
I think that's worth being said. Anything within your pockets or inventory of your backpack are still lootable.
Yep.
Which apparently a lot of people just didn't see. Because, like, looting, PvP looting, still there.
Yeah. While equipped items will also remain on your corpse too, they will not be interactable, preventing item duplication while still preserving the visual state of your character at the time of death. This approach helps mitigate item duplication issues in the initial implementation while laying the groundwork for future expansions of the system in Tier 1 and Tier 2, which you can read more about below. Important note.
Suicide griefing is a completely different problem. That is a law and order problem in the game, not a item problem.
Yeah. Um, and the number of people that do that were, like, I don't think that there's going to be more people doing that. People that were doing that were going to do that already, whether they lost their gear or not. It's that's a mentality. It's not something that I don't expect more people to do it just because, well, now there's not as much gear fear. And again, this is one of those things where I think it fixes more issues than it breaks. It's not perfect because it's tier 0. And there are issues like that, but I think the issue with losing your gear and having to start all over again in terms of re-equipping when you have bugs and having to buy 30 sets of something because you can keep losing it. I don't have faith in people. It's just it's not a big issue. Where the it's far more of an issue for people to just constantly be losing equipment and losing gear and spending money just to have it lost to bugs.
Specifically the stuff that we've earned or bought on the site. Like, for instance, what my favorite backpack aesthetically is my Argo backpack. I'm never able to wear it because I'm going to step out of my ship and I'm going to suffocate, or I'm going to get shot in the head. Doesn't matter. I'm going to trip on a rock and die. And I just can't wear my Argo backpack because I'll just lose it within seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why this is fixing. That's what this is fixing. It is not fixing combat. That's not the purpose of this.
Yeah. There's going to be, with additional tiers and additional things, that's going to address that issue. And it is a valid issue, but it's which thing carries more weight? Which is the bigger problem for more people?
Only problem I have with tier 0 is that last little bullet point. With tier 0, you'll respawn with your previously equipped gear on your character. That's the only part I don't like. Like, it should be a timer and then it will go into your inventory. That's the only thing I don't like. That's the only thing. But, like, it fixes alpha game problems. Shocking, we're in an alpha game. Look at that.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a feature that is done for 1.0. When we get to 1.0, we'll have tier 2. The entire system will be done.
So, scenario example. I didn't read all those. Important notes. Items stored in your inventory, example, items in your backpack, will not be protected and will remain on your corpse upon death, available to be looted, stolen by the players, or retrieved by you. Items such as magazines and med pens that you have equipped can still be looted from your corpse. However, you will also respond with these items, as duplication concerns for these types of consumables are less concerning at this stage. No one cares about duping magazines and grenades and stuff. That's fine that you can loot those things, because that way you can loot during a fight and get more ammo and stuff and keep going. Tier 0 item recovery applies to all forms of respawning, whether in a med bed or on a ship or at your assigned landing zone. To ensure that your weapon in active use is secured as an equipped weapon, it will automatically be stowed to your holster upon death. If you die within a landing zone, you will respawn with both your gear, equipped gear, and your inventory. Example, belongs in your backpack. This is to help avoid you losing items of any kind should a death outside of your control happen. With tier 0, you will respawn with your previously equipped gear already attached to your character. Scenario example, while exploring, you loot a rifle and store it in your backpack. If you die, that rifle will remain on your corpse, available for others to loot or for you to revisit your corpse and retrieve. However, the original rifle you had equipped to your character, in hand or holstered...
So say we all!
So say we all! However, the original rifle you had equipped to your character, in hand or holstered, at the time of death will be secured and respawn with you.
Interesting. I actually didn't notice that looted items aren't covered. At least looted and not in hand. If they're hanging on your backpack,
No, store it in your backpack. If it's in hand or holstered, that goes with you. If it's stored in a backpack or in a pocket, it does not.
Okay, it's worded really weirdly. Because
Yeah, it's a little confusing.
However, the original one you equipped, it should say just any of equipped weapons, not just the original. Okay.
So go ahead for looking ahead, tier 1 and tier 2.
While tier 0 lays the groundwork and provides some assurances that your equipped items are not lost, we are already actively developing tier 1 and tier 2 implementations. These future updates will add more depth to the system, including a viable path for piracy.
Go for it. Keep going.
All right. Tier 1, loadout
I'll do
and
tier
ship.
2.
Okay. Loadout and ship registration. Tier 1 will introduce the ability to register your gear and ships at kiosks or ASOF terminals. Important note, personal loadouts. More personal loadout. Players can register their equipped items, which can be reclaimed for a fee at specific kiosks or freight elevators. Ship and interiors. Ships, along with their loadouts, decorations, and locker contents, can also be registered. They can be reclaimed in the state they were previously registered at ASOF terminals for a price. Looting and bricked items. Once an item is looted, it remains unusable until the original owner reclaims it or marks it as stolen.
It remains usable.
Yeah, usable until they mark it as stolen. At this point, the dead man switch is activated, meaning it will cease to function after a period of time. While a looted and or stolen bricked item is no longer usable, you can still sell the item for credits. So the start of piracy being put back into the system. Pledge items are auto-registered and will never lose their registration status. They can always be claimed back, even if they were not manually registered. They have effective LTI. LTI and was the other layer they added for insurance. Basically,
that's the thing,
same
is they
thing
don't,
we're doing.
But they don't say if the reclaim price is waived. They just say they're magically registered. They can always be claimed back, but it doesn't say if there's no fee.
Right. I would imagine that just like the LTI stuff, that they always have LTI, but the policy will still need to be updated.
Yeah.
To get it back. Last one. With tier 1, you will no longer respawn with your preserved gear already equipped. You will need to visit a location, such as your freight elevator, to reclaim your registered items. We are developing a quality of life feature which will allow you to re-equip your previous full loadout with one auto-equip button. I cannot wait for that button. Additionally, with this implementation of Tier 1, our current plan is to remove the ability to backspace out of dangerous scenarios as a way to retain your gear. Okay, so they're not removing backspace. That's good because that's our current unstuck button. But at least it will. They're looking into ways of making sure you don't retain your gear if you backspace. Cool.
My only issue is I think the bricking system is dumb. I think that the idea that there's a dead man switch on a rifle that someone can activate that makes it no longer usable is silly.
I want to know what, and I think I thought of it before, but I don't remember what I remember. What case are they trying to, like, what's, it seems like a fix without a problem.
A fix without a problem. Yeah, and that's the thing is I don't see, I haven't seen an argument in favor of bricking and why we need bricking. Is it just because like then we have too many? Is it there's too many of them and like what's the point? Like if they were just using it and it's on their person and I loot it up and I pick it up and I'm shooting, and then they claim it as, because that's the thing. That's my part of my issue is, oh, well, look at this gun. This is sweet. But I can only carry 2. So I'm going to drop the other one that I was carrying and leave that back there. And now I'm going to carry this one. And then the person says, presses button. It no longer works while I'm in the middle of a fucking firefight. And the gun's like, no, you're not Robert. That's dumb. That doesn't make any sense. It's one thing to say, oh yeah, my ship, has a dead man switch and I can activate a transceiver. Like my freaking car does that, but no one's gonna put that feature in every freaking handgun.
Yeah, I don't like specifically, one, the fix looking for a problem, but 2, the LTI FTL data. The fact that it doesn't brick until the player hits a button, and then wherever they are, wherever this item is in the universe, they have perfect millisecond data connection.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit within the universe.
If you're gonna brick it when I'm dead.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, sweet. I get to use it for, 2 minutes while they wait to respawn and then, go press a button. It's like, well, what? No, that doesn't make any sense, and, so all it's useful for is, shooting with it for 2 minutes and then you have to carry it to sell it. And even once we get the ability to restore brick, no, I shouldn't have to restore a bricked item. Like, that doesn't make sense. To the victor go the spoils. You died. I won. I get your stuff now. Like I'm all for full loot.
Yeah.
I
hope if not before the Nazeris and Con this year, they give us a reason for bricking.
Yeah. If somebody wants to get their and like I'm all for giving people a path to get their subscriber gear or like and there's got to be a different way to prevent duping than making looting not believable. And again, this only applies to players, but it's awfully like it doesn't make a lot of sense that well the NPC can't brick their stuff, but the player can. It's a gamification. It's an over gamification.
Yeah, I agree.
It's incongruous, especially with like. There's got to be a way to prevent duping that doesn't involve making it that you can't, effectively loot players in PvP, and giving me a crafting option to fix something that shouldn't be a problem isn't a fix. Yeah, explain why it doesn't brick, when you loot off an NPC. Yeah, I don't like it. Yeah, I mean, obviously things are going to incorporate wear and tear, but that's everything. Everything's going to have wear and tear. You're going to have to maintain your gear. And if people want to get their stuff back, well then for me to me, item recovery should be on the person recovering it. It shouldn't be, on the person doing the looting. Like, I feel like item recovery should be based off of crafting. Oh, okay, you want to, get this item back? Okay, well, you have the blueprint. You need to craft it. And now you can get it back. And like there should be some gear fear, but there should be some looting and everything like that. But, or you can, pay to have it, crafted or something like that. The fee is fine. But there's got to be a different way to prevent duping of items that isn't just removing the believability of looting. Tier 2, restoring bricked items and crafting integration. Tier 2 would introduce a way to restore previously bricked items for a price. That just like, why would I loot things if I'm gonna have to? If all okay, then looting is really just for money, unless I really want to go through all these extra steps to be able to use the thing that was just they were just using it to shoot at me. It didn't suddenly stop freaking working just because they died. Looting and bricked items. Once an item is looted, you will have the option to sell it, dismantle it for crafting materials, or restore it with the potential cost of crafting materials and credits to make it your own. This system creates a viable path for piracy. It shouldn't need to be there in the first place, allowing you to claim other players' belongings if you take the necessary steps to legitimize ownership. Now, that's a different thing. If you want to legitimize ownership, and that way you can, like, if you want to legitimize ownership so that way you can register it, that's different. Because then if you register it, then you can get it back for a price. That's a different thing. But I should be able to loot it and use it until it breaks, or if it gets looted off me, or I lose it. Not, but if I want to, if you want to treat it like ships where, what they call it at CitizenCon, where you can, essentially scratch off the VIN and put a new VIN on there to make it yours. If you want to do that for weapons, so that way you can register it to get it replaced, for a fee, that's fine. That's something different. But to impose that process on you just to be able to use it, that doesn't make sense to me. Because then you can't get it back, so you can use it at your own risk. Then that's better, because they run the risk of losing it for good if they die with it and don't go back and recover it. If an item had a cosmetic applied, restoring it will remove the cosmetic in the process. The introduction of item recovery is a significant step toward making gear persistence more meaningful while maintaining the risk-reward balance of looting. Tier 0 and Alpha 4.1 is just the beginning, and as we further integrate into the broader crafting and insurance systems, we'll be actively refining and updating with the help of your feedback throughout the PTU and process and beyond. And I'm hoping that discussions like these, like the ones that Paul had on this feature and a lot of other people have had, will get CIG, a bit of the feedback, like, no, this bricking idea is dumb. This is silly. It doesn't belong in the universe. I like you said, it's a solution looking for a problem. I think that there's more elegant ways to prevent duping than simply saying, no, you can't use this when you loot it. And even though, like, the majority of us do the majority of our looting from PvE, that's not always going to be the case. And that marginalizes a lot of players who are much more PvP oriented, and makes it so that way their opportunity to loot good gear is significantly less. It's like, oh, okay, well, the only way you can loot gear is if you go and do all these
I really
extra
like what socially
unnecessary
confused
steps.
is. And that's something that, like, Starfield does too. It would be neat if the looter loses the looted armor, etc., if sent to prison unless it's cleaned. I really like that. So if they have any looted things on their ship that have not been, what was the legitimized ownership, then it just gets swiped from them by the authorities. I really like that solution a lot.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
If you like loot a gun off of somebody, and then you get pulled over by the cops, they scan your thing like, hey, that's not your thing. And like have levels to it. Like you have an item from something that's not yours. Okay, that's stealing. They're gonna come board your ship, take the thing, and you're fine and go away.
Yeah.
Or short term, it's gonna disappear out of your inventory.
You should have gear fear for your looted items.
Yes.
But
if you can get back to your base, if you can scratch the VIN and register it with some pirate organization that puts a new VIN on it, then it's yours and you can be scanned and you're good.
Yep. Yeah. No
one's
going to know that gun isn't yours, or that piece of armor. Whatever it is that you looted. I think that the ability to retain it and keep it should require a lot of effort to do it. But if you just want to keep it for the meantime and you run the risk of losing it, well then, okay, sweet, it's gone, no harm, no foul. And now the item is deleted from the universe. and with how often, unlawful players, I feel like there's enough exchange of this going on that it would help mitigate this issue a lot. But the problem I think that we really have to, that CIG runs into, and I think that's the issue they're trying to solve, and they're not really doing it in an elegant manner, is people just duping, gaming the system and duping it. Oh sweet, I recovered the item and you just kill me, I loot it, and now I've got 10 of them and all I had to do is kill you a bunch of times. And the like the fix for that is, if that, I think that the mitigating factor for that is regen, and the medical costs. Like if in order to loot something, the person has to be downed, and incur all these injuries and stuff, well then, like, is it going to be worth it to go through all that pain and suffering just to dupe a weapon or a piece of armor? I don't know. I feel like there's definitely, like you guys were saying, there's definitely more elegant solutions, but there's also a multitude of ways that you can mitigate this enough that it's not really a big enough problem to worry about.
And I'm sure they could make a check. If I have a gun in my backpack, I backspace inside my hangar. I don't know what I know. There's something about dying in landing zones, but ignore that for a second. I backspace in my hangar, go to the freight elevator, and claim the thing. That is something that only bricking would do. Because now I have two of them. One of them has to be non-functional because I've just duplicated it for myself. But there's got to be a check for that.
Yeah.
So, but that's like the only scenario that I've thought of so far that bricking it makes sense. Is that you're duplicating for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But also, like you said, medical costs. That's going to be so expensive to do. Because respawning is going to cost money eventually.
Yeah. Whether you respawn due to being injured and you wake up in a hospital, you got rescued, or respawn because you regened, which is even 1,000 times worse.
Blizzard said, I still have a non-functional gun I can strip for parts and free. Yeah, so free parts. Yeah, so you get free cuts and free parts. So it doesn't solve it either. So it just solves you don't have a functional bit. And again, once tier 2 comes in, you can have like you can have a store of duplicated guns. You just gotta fix. So it does not solve duping, especially as we get to tier 2.
Shooters on the firing line. But yeah, so that's the there's going to be a lot more to come for item recovery. They're going to need to do a lot of iteration and discussion on this. I think it's important that we continue to provide good feedback to them, because obviously, like, Nazeris and I are pretty optimistic, and I feel like we're, in general, pretty just not hyperbolic about stuff. Like we're pretty oh gosh, what's the word? Pretty objective about things. And if you and I can read through this and we're like, that just does not feel right at all, I think it's probably a good indicator that, hey, maybe you guys need to go back to the drawing board on a little bit of this, because there are aspects of this that I think are viable, especially in the short term. But the bricking thing is just, it doesn't seem like that's the right way to go in order to address duping. And I think especially, like with, what we said on Captain Sable, like they don't develop features in isolation. And I think this, along with other things like regen, and medical costs, and and the law system, because like right now, a lot of crime goes unpunished, absolutely unpunished. Um, and I think people are going to, like you were saying, if you get pulled, if a bounty hunter or space police or the military catch up with you, and they stop you, you agree to stop, or they disable your ship, or you're they they get you on the ground or whatever, you lose it. You lose all that looted gear, unless you went through all the work of
The BMM's already in game. His name's Wicklow.
yeah.
That's my favorite joke of the whole PTU.
Mm-hmm.
I forget where I saw it, but he's a Banu merchant man.
Yeah, the band of merchantmen's in game,
Yep.
technically.
I live on your tears.
But that's our initial thoughts, and I think we're probably going to end up coming back to this again in the future, I'm sure, as we get more information about it. But that's our initial thoughts about item recovery. I think in the near term with 4.1, I think this helps to mitigate some of the friction in game. It obviously introduces some problems as well, but I think those are outweighed by the benefit that it provides in the short term. But I do think that they're going to have to adjust their plans a bit in order to make it a bit more viable going forward. But I think that it's going to be difficult to do those. You really can't take those plans into consideration without thinking about, like like we talked about, the other ramifications of the law system and such, and there actually being consequences to criminal behavior, which there's very little right now other than player enforced. But yeah, so the last couple things that we want to do this evening, because we didn't want to just take up a whole 3-hour episode to go through probably not that long, but 2-hour episode to go through.
I mean, we're already at 216.
Yeah, and I, but if we went through the entire January monthly report and all of our tangents, it would be a 2-hour episode, and the same with the February monthly report. But so went through and picked out a couple of things that really stuck out from the January and the February monthly report. I just wanted to go over those real quick. Yeah, the whole 4-hour episode.
I'm sorry, I just read like a sentence that I just didn't remember, and I'm now super excited. Oh, that's just AI content. Okay, well, still. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so the first thing, and this is the January monthly report, the first thing that really stuck out to me was in AI tech. So they said, alongside this, planning was done for the work still required to fully synchronize AI components with the server meshing authority transition and other features and systems planned for development this year. And so the reason this stuck out to me is, pardon me, AI components. This is the work needed for NPCs to cross server boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, they can't do that. They don't do that. And this isn't just flying from planet to planet, but when dynamic server meshing comes in and things are scaling up in a big way, and a landing zone will have multiple servers, NPCs will go about their life cycles commuting across microtech and going to work and coming home and doing all that stuff. And so there's going to be a lot of opportunity for NPCs to transition, have their authority transition from one server to another, using the transit system, flying on ships, all sorts of different things. And so this is a really important thing, both for the believability of the universe, but also for like this is required for for more in depth and longer missions. This is required for bounty hunting. If you're chasing a bounty across the system, they have to be able to transition server authority. This could impact a lot of upcoming gameplay. So I thought that that was a pretty poignant thing to see that they are working on and planning for in the near future. The next thing was from Core Gameplay. And of course, the Core Gameplay section was really short in January because January is just a short monthly report. But they said Core Gameplay also began planning for the rest of the year, laying the groundwork for upcoming patches and planned features and content. Features and content, because feature development is continuing and we will get new features. And Core Gameplay are the ones who are developing the majority of the substantial features that are really impactful to players. Alongside this, technical documentation was created for fundamental improvements or rewrites to some of the core systems, including the transit and hangar flows. Yes, the transit refactor is, of course, very important. And so they really need that for dynamic server meshing. So the fact that they are working on that and they are making the plans for it, it's gonna happen. This involved cross-team collaboration to ensure that improvements are not solely on the game side, but also support content setup and the latest engine features. Nazir, were you about to say something? I thought you had.
Nope.
Okay. And then the last thing was actually not something from the monthly report, but it's something they linked to in the monthly report. But they said following this, they continued the ongoing mission refactor and shared an update on the status of some of the old missions on Spectrum. And so if you missed this post, because I didn't see it just following the dev tracker, I saw it from the monthly reports.
You could also find reference to this in the lead-up patch notes to 4.1.
Ah, okay, good. Yep, I missed that. And so if I hadn't read the monthly report, I would not have tracked this down. But this was a good little piece. And Naz, actually, if you want to read this one, since it's right there.
Wahoo! Hello! The mission system refactor was an absurdly huge task that had a ton of hidden complexities and things that need to redo, consider, or just generally tidy up. With this, I made a priority list of missions to get refactored first. So you will notice a few missions have gone missing. This doesn't mean that they won't come back. We are working through refactoring some of the ones that we didn't get to in time to do this for the first 4.0 releases. So I believe this was in noting that the 890 jump missions had gone missing. Which are ones like the 890 jump mission and the hijack caterpillar mission. Some missions might come back with the same name but played very differently, as well as using this time to also...
So something got cut off, and I don't know what it was.
Whoops. Yep. However, not all of the missions are gone, will come back, and we are still finalizing that list. The reason for this is some of these missions are incredibly old, and a part of where Star Citizen was at their time. Oh, well, Star Citizen was at their time of release, and we don't consider them fun or to represent the vision we have for Star Citizen 1.0, aka, I don't know if he's going to mention it. I don't know if they've talked about it. The Kovalex mission.
Yeah.
Please leave that in the back room. It was good for Star Citizen 3.0. It was great. It was awesome. Give me Hitman missions. However, as mentioned before, some of these missions might come back just in incredibly different gameplay state. Just all a part of our effort to make fun and engaging content for our player base. Toothless, what are you doing? I want box missions back. Do we not have box missions? I thought we had box missions back.
Yeah, aren't they? Weren't they added back in 4.1? I haven't done them, but I thought I read that they were back.
Summon Pyro. They do exist. Yeah, I do like box missions.
I want
I
an
specifically
updated version
keep doing
of the Now, obviously, what they talked about for their investigation missions when they talked about the what was it at CitizenCon, their design brief.
Yeah.
Obviously, those are going to be really cool. I still want to be able to go and do the wreck diving missions. I want them to work. I want those random wrecks that get spawned, whether it's in space or on a planet. I want those ships to have lootable cargo and
I want
lootable
narrative
components.
to have a field day with them. Yeah. But I want narrative to have I want there to be a computer hard drive that you can dig into and see the last X amount of time, the ship started up and it has a log entry and received damage log entry. Somebody made a log saying, "Hey, we're doing this in this time," and you can read down the list of this ship log.
Yeah,
and
you have to
watch,
find out what happened, not just okay, here's the right dead body well, you found 4 out of 5 because the 5th one didn't spawn.
Yep.
I want the dead bodies to have loot,
insurance investigator kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah.
You're there to, as a freelancer, to supposedly save, for the insurance company, they'd love to save money, but you're just there to figure out what happened. And it'd be a nice little touch, and I think this is something they wanted to do where, procedurally generating these wrecks. That once you, assuming the insurance company doesn't need the wreck after you're done, you just salvage it. And you're good. And you move on.
Yeah. The wreck you should be able to scrape it and munch it. You should be able to pull the components out. You should be able to loot the characters and the all that stuff. Because they are dated assets that are basically not interactable, like a ship that is a player or NPC one that you destroyed in combat. And it should be like those, where there's components, where there's loot, where there's cargo and stuff, and that's, I want those back because I enjoyed those missions. I thought they were fun. And I thought they would be a lot more engaging, if you were, actually wreck diving, looking for tablets and clues, or you had to, once engineering comes on, you have to put a fuse in here in order for the computer to turn back on for you to then, you have to find the tablet with the passcode to be able to, unlock the log, and, that way you can get the answer, and once you get that answer,
that's another thing that we haven't heard of in a while. We haven't heard of hacking in a while.
Yep. That too, all that sort of stuff. There's a lot of different ways they could make those missions really engaging with a lot of different gameplay elements, some that we have now, some that we need to have in the future. Oh yeah. Socially confused. Yeah. You are speaking my language. Yep. I want to solve murders that I did not commit, that other people committed.
Yeah.
Because obviously, of course I know him. He's me.
Yeah.
Who done it?
I want straight up just Hitman levels and the reverse Hitman level. So I want to go in, you have to do a whole bunch of sneaky what you do, whether that's just straight stealth or blending in or whatnot, or just conning your way through the door, hacking and getting the credentials you need, whatever it is, achieving your goal. And sometimes Hitmans, you don't actually have to kill people, but it's data driven as well. And then the reverse of that, you're trying to figure out what the heck happened. How did they get in here? And you have to go through the same kind of mission you would have done, maybe even 2 sides of the same coin. One player has to stop you, and they have to figure out how you're going to get in and preempt you, and you have to get in and try and avoid a player trying to figure you out.
have to stop the assassination or the sabotage or. I'm looking for. I hope that they will release the list that they are working on of missions that are going to be coming back and ones that are not, and kind of give us an update on, why, what are they going to replace them with in the future? What are they going to do differently? Yeah. So that was the things that really stuck out to me from the January monthly report. From February into the dead person's imprint to work out how they died. Ooh, boy.
All right, you've been watching a little too much Stitchers, but okay. That's, I mean, that is such an interesting concept that the imprint would like exist for a while, and that you could like use it as like a virtual reality. That'd be so. Oh, that'd be so. That was a great show. Stitchers was a great show.
So for the February monthly report, the first thing that stuck out to me, and part of the reason it stuck out to me is they talked about it in the January monthly report as well. AI content continued updating the broken air traffic controller behavior throughout the main landing zones, with fixes entering the QATR process for validation, stress testing, and to ensure they don't break other areas of the game. Once successful, the team will begin scheduling it for inclusion in an upcoming patch. So the reason I thought this was interesting is this is the ATC controller behavior. So you call for, obviously it's been pretty broken for a while now, in terms of like, does it sync up? Does it work? Does it give you the right information? Does it even, give you a hanger? Does that permission system end up working right? There's been a lot of issues. Hey, Cindy Sanderson, good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for coming and hanging out. No worries. This will be up on the YouTube where you can watch the VOD on Twitch, but good to see you again. It's been a while, but we will endeavor to not have it to be back to our more regularly scheduled programming. But what they've talked about
that like wanting to start Pathfinders regular again has coincided with my wanting to push my content again. So I'm actually going to be trying to find a way to do 2 streams and 1 video a week.
We are inextricably linked, Nazeris.
I know, it's weird. Unfortunately, most of my videos are going to be space engineers. I say unfortunately, but I have like a whole like
space engineers too.
Yeah. I'm going to be doing like a whole like narratively based build series.
Mm-hmm.
So I have 2 of my friends and I will be doing voice lines for 3 different characters. And as they go through their story, I'll be building out different builds, starting with a cryo ship to a station where they go from being on their mass transit cryo ship to being on their own colony ship, or technically homestead ship.
Naz is making a ship for ice cream. They're going to use cryotech in order to mass produce ice cream in space, because that's what space people love. All spacemen love ice cream.
Freeze-dried ice cream.
Yeah, did you ever eat that growing up?
No.
The NASA freeze-dried ice cream? Oh,
no,
man.
but I really want some right now.
Yeah. So the reason I bring this up is, okay, it's a behavior. It's definitely not a key thing, but it's tied, into the behavior doesn't always work, but it's also the ATC system doesn't always work. It's not just the AI behavior isn't really the issue. It's it doesn't trigger right, and part of the reason it doesn't trigger right is the ATC system is so old and just barely holding together, and it makes me want we've remember when Benoit was on SCL with Jared, and he's said it multiple times. What are the systems that like are really difficult to touch and do anything with are transit, ATC. Wasn't there a third? But transit and ATC are a couple of the really big old legacy systems that they really need to just and the mission system, things that they really just need to refactor and replace entirely from the ground up. Well, we know that they've been working on ATC and that they need to replace it because the ATC system needs to scale. Right now, each server is running their own instance of ATC. But the ATC system needs to scale and hand over authority for ATC as shards grow and shift in configuration with static or with dynamic server meshing. So it needs to be refactored so that way it works regardless of what the configuration of a shard is at a given time. Well, if they're working on that and getting it ready for dynamic server meshing, then they would also need to make sure that that system integrates with the AI, the AI content of the air traffic controller. So that way, when you contact ATC to request a landing and such, for the various reasons, whether you want a hangar or you need to offload cargo, what have you, it needs to trigger the right AI behaviors as well. And so if they're working on this, to me, it suggests that there's some forward movement on ATC for dynamic server meshing and hopefully getting that process working and functioning and also more immersive by having the AI behavior work with it, and having it not be the same guy everywhere you go at every station and landing zone.
And bring back tunnels.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, bring them back. Bring it back. It needs to happen.
We need, we don't currently have a population that would require it, but when we have 100 people plus at a landing zone, we need to know what our path into our hangar is or out of our hangar, so that we know nobody else is going to intersect with that path.
Yep. Yeah, you can't have ATC people haven't thought about it and don't understand how important it is, because it hasn't been an issue with low population shards. Yeah. And when a shard has a population of thousands and there's hundreds of people coming and going from a landing zone or a space station on a regular basis, you can't have ATC chaos. You have to have people flying in predictable paths at predictable speeds, doing what they're told by ATC and the system in order for it to not be absolute chaos. Because it just the people saying, well, my immersion, what if I want to go low fly around the spaceport? And tough shit. Not a thing. That is not.
Airports in now are no-fly zones.
Yeah, it is. If you think that in the 30th century humanity that you would be able to enter into a landing zone controlled airspace with your ship flying at spaceship speeds, and crowded airspace like that, and be able to fly around and do whatever the hell you want, and you wouldn't have to ask permission to enter and give them, control of your ship if you don't, follow your flight plan, you are absolutely high. If you go into controlled airspace, around a major metropolitan airport and you don't do what they want, you will lose your pilot's license, B, look at jail time, and C, probably get intercepted really quickly by military aircraft. Like, they do not play
the
around
one
with
thing that Star Citizen has over reality currently is turrets. They don't need to field fighters. They have guns already on you.
Yeah. Well, and low flying through a city is different than low flying over the spaceport and the approach to the spaceport. But even so, the airspace around a city is controlled. You would have speed limits, and all that sort of stuff. And I get people want to do whatever the fuck they want, but that's not how things work. And You can't say, oh, well, I don't want to get pad rammed and I don't want people suiciding me, but I want to be able to do whatever the hell I want in controlled airspace around a station or a landing zone. No. If you want to do whatever you want, go fly around uncontrolled airspace around an outpost. Because that would be like, going to, class D airspace without a tower, out in the middle of fucking nowhere or something. Um, I know a lot of people don't have much experience with this, but I spend hours and hours and hours every shift listening to air traffic control, and watching my pilots and how they communicate with air traffic control and what they do, and watching what controlled airspace looks like on radar. Not going to happen when you have hundreds of players coming and going from landing zones.
All right, so I got some stuff picked out in the February report.
Cool. Let me just do my last. I've got two. I've got two more, and then we'll look at yours. Or tell you what, why don't you do yours, and then we'll do mine next. My next one.
All right, they might overlap, so we'll see.
Mhm.
We talked about engineering earlier, so in core gameplay, there's several mentions of things we talked about or we wanted to talk about. So about, oh god, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-ish paragraphs down. For engineering gameplay, the team added panels to the engineering screen to show critical information.
Where was it? Say again.
Core gameplay.
Core get
About 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 7th kind of part.
Yep, we have overlap.
Okay.
That's why.
When items are selected, they are adjusting presets to enable UI pop-ups to reduce duplication and fix various issues. To they're doing UI stuff. Also, improvements were made to the resource network debugging tools. Debugging tools are important when launching a product. Item port localization set up to prevent errors. Various player-facing issues caused resource network to not behave as players expected were fixed. While the coolant effectiveness calculation for item was updated. Progress made on base building, with devs identifying and fixing various bugs, particularly in the client server flow. Validation for buildings placed on land claims began, and localization strings were implemented. That reads like much more done than I was expecting, but I imagine that's also base work.
Mm-hmm.
But also like the fact that they're already working on validation for land claims.
Yep. Yeah, I was not expecting to read that. In February.
That seems like kind of like a last minute. Like that seems like you've done the base building like basics, and like you're now working on the edge cases. Like in like the string of like events in my head, it would be like make base building work, make base building like connect and stuff, and then validate that you can have ownership of them on a plot. Now it's just content. So I'd love to get like a more in-depth update on that. Hopefully sooner rather than later. Regarding crafting, the core feature is now playable. This is what I was talking about earlier. Using the developer UI, including the use of blueprints, variable material quality, crafting timers, and resource-dependent item stats. A basic queue to craft multiple items was added too. So, crafting is functionally complete.
Yeah, the game code that makes it work.
Like, yes. Content-wise, presentation-wise, it's crap. But functionally, it's there. There is dozens, hundreds possibly of hours of man hours to finish crafting. Because think of every item in the game has to be done at least 3 times. And then all of those things have to have variables in their quality, depending on resources. And then they all have blueprints, and they there's probably 12 hours per item
Mm-hmm.
And that's before we even get to like building out furniture and potting plants and all the like decorations that we're going to be able to build. Like they're now building a building game, and building games are notorious for never having enough blocks. It's great. There's just so much work to go. Ground marker, clutter, no. And then I think the other thing I had. Where was it? I know it's here somewhere.
Here, I'll do mine real quick because mine's kind of short.
Yep. Okay.
So for AI tech, they said last month the AI tech team progressed with work that will allow them to voxelize huge areas for 3D navigation. This will be used to create paths for AI ships and EVAing NPCs. I brought this up, because they were talking about this in the previous monthly report as well. It's ongoing work. So they are building the tech to allow for NPCs to EVA not only in space, but also in ships. So you have a wrecked ship, or a ship that is has the gravity turned off, or a space station without gravity. So like our derelict space stations and Pyro and stuff. This is what will allow NPCs to EVA, just like us in environments without gravity. So with this tech, it can make for some really interesting gameplay and mission environments, by allowing NPCs to have this capability. So I really look forward to seeing it. I know you guys have probably heard me talk about it, but I really enjoy EVA even already. But it's the promise of what EVA will be based off what they've shown us, both for development of Squadron, but also their plans for the future. That's the kind of space gameplay I really love, is wreck diving and exploring in EVA, and having to navigate those environments. It's not something that's done in a lot of games, and so I think it's going to be, having that not only for us but also for the NPCs. Could be really, really cool and incredibly unique, because you won't have it anywhere in any other game. It's not a thing. So, did you have one last one that you wanted to hit?
Yep.
Yes?
It was also in gameplay. I thought it was in UI because the
Gameplay.
inventory UI rework progressed with a new concept art. This ongoing initiative to address many visual and user experience issues with the current inventory, including how players equip items on their character.
Yay!
I can't wait to see this.
Mm-hmm.
Please release the concept art.
Yep. Yeah, I
Let us tear us apart and tell you why you're wrong.
well, and we talked about that before, like how when they got rid of the UI system for
Item banks.
item banks, and we talked about the whole paper doll thing,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm hoping that they are looking at something along the lines of what you and I talked about, and we're very much in agreement with what Space Tomato had talked about on his episode that he talked about it. I think that there's a lot of room for improvement, and definitely more functional than the developer UI that we have right now for it, which just sticks out like a sore thumb compared to the rest.
It also is a big problem thematically because it forces third person.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
it would be nice, third person, and it's really not performant at all.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Getting those icons to load is horribly inefficient.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just chugs.
And then this bug still exists where if you move something into another inventory, it goes blue, like holographic, and then you have no idea what it is.
Yep. Yeah. But unless you have anything else, that should be it for this episode. We are under 3 hours. When was the last time?
Woot! Well, I mean, as long as we end in the next 10 minutes.
We can do it. No.
Well,
But
do
yeah.
we have a plan for our next episode? Do we know when we're coming back?
Well, we were gonna have the next monthly report should be this Wednesday. So I like we talked about, Naz and I we agreed that we didn't want to stop doing the monthly reports. We just didn't feel it was necessary to do 2 full episodes covering monthly reports that were already as old as they are. So we are going to do the March monthly report as normal. So that'll be coming out this Wednesday. But I think when, I think a good cadence is when there's a roadmap roundup, we can do a roadmap roundup, and then we can look at, we can itemize dev statements leading up to that and do, they don't have to be full on SITREPs where we go through, 6 months worth of updates. It can just be like, oh, here's the latest, word from the devs about these different things.
Yep.
So we'll keep you
So
posted
are we going
exactly
to try and get one a week?
Ideally, one a week or one a week, 3 times a month, give or take. Because monthly report and then probably like 2 other episodes. And if there's something really big to cover, then maybe more. But I think that gives us allows us to, not do it every week, but most weeks, and cover most of the important stuff that we want to cover without having to try to find filler content.
Yep, makes sense.
Cool. Well, I will try and get this episode up on the YouTube. I'll probably get it uploaded tomorrow, and it'll go live on Monday. If you want to check it out there or just watch the VOD on Twitch. But thanks again, everybody, for coming and hanging out and being here with us on our first episode back after a long hiatus. Naz, thanks for making this work in your schedule. I appreciate it. It's good to see you and hang out again. I missed this. Yep. I need it. And we will plan. We'll try to get the monthly report episode out as soon as possible after the report goes live. And we need to find someone to raid so we can share the love and pay it forward. So does anyone have any suggestions of who we could raid? Let's see. There's actually quite a few
Only
people
person
playing Star
I
Citizen.
have is... I don't even know how to pronounce that. I forget where I was rated them. Not I rated them, but I was given in a raid for them a while ago. Nope, not that person. There we go. I have 14 viewers currently, so a little over double for raid them.
Oh, who? Good night, Blizzrad. Good to see you, buddy. Thanks again for renewing the sub. Case
Night.
Let's see. Copy.
They're doing some salvaging.
Says heading out is finished. Let's go back to Stanton. All right, let's go ahead and send them a raid and go ahead and everybody be nice. Go show them some support. Say hi. Tell them that Naz and Tree sent you and enjoy the rest of your evening. And we will see you again soon. Cheers.
Bye, everyone.